Let's talk about the dream gap. What's that?
It's the gap that comes between girls and their full potential.
We need to see brilliant women being brilliant and see how they got to where they are. To imagine ourselves doing what they do. We need all of you to help. We need to close the dream gap. It's up to all of us.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I believe we have people from all over the country with us today. Thank you so much all for being here. We're very excited. Welcome. My name is Diana Albarran. I am the co-founder of the Latinas in STEM Foundation. I'm very excited today to be here moderating this amazing panel of professional Latinas in STEM that are in the aerospace industry. We are also very excited to be able to be here as part of the Dream Gap project with Barbie, who, as part of Hispanic Heritage Month, partnered with Latinas in STEM to be able to do a series of events in honor of the first Latina astronaut, Dr. Ellen Ochoa. And so in support of that, and in continuation of all the amazing work that Dr. Ellen Ochoa has done over the years, we're here today to talk with this amazing group of women that are making a big difference in the aerospace industry. And I'm very excited to go ahead and get started. I do want to thank everybody for being here today, for the panelists, and let's get started. So I'm going to have each panelist introduce themselves, provide their names, their title, a little bit about their upbringing, and explain a little bit of what type of work they do today. So I'll kick off very quickly. Like I mentioned, my name is Diana. I'm the founder of Latinas in STEM, but I'm also a senior program manager with Muon Space. It's a amazing company that currently is working on providing satellite constellation for FireSat and mitigation of fires around the country. So we're very excited to be doing the type of work. Actually, just last week, the Muon Space was named 2025 innovative company for space by Time Magazine. So they're doing very amazing work, and I'm very excited to be part of the organization. Now I'll go ahead and have Kaylee start us off with the brief introductions.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylee Looney. I'm a senior GNC engineer at Sidus Space, which is a startup located here on the Space Coast of Florida that's working on AI-powered satellites. I also am the CEO and founder of a nonprofit organization called Reinvented Inc. that's all about empowering and inspiring the next generation of young girls to get more hands-on and curious with STEM. Outside of that, I have my aerospace engineering undergraduate degree and my master's in space systems engineering. And my family is originally from Ecuador. I'm first gen here, actually.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Kaylee. We'll go ahead and move on to Rosalind.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. So my name is Rosalind Campos. I am a staff mechanical design engineer. So I work on solar arrays and I work for Lanteris Space Systems, formerly known as Maxar. And so I work specifically on solar arrays. My degree was in aerospace engineering and I got that from UCLA. And I currently also participate on the Latinas in STEM executive board. Because I'm very passionate about bringing other Latinas into STEM degrees and fields.
Great, thank you, Rosalind. Dion? Can you hear us? We'll go ahead and come back. Laura, to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I am Laura Vega, and I am an astrophysicist. So I am originally from San Antonio, Texas. My parents are from Mexico, from Zacatecas and Coahuila. Shout out to family. So I work at the University of Maryland College Park and NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. I study stellar flares, so just bursts of energy, and I study how that impacts planets that orbit stars. I also wanted to say that I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at San Antonio and Fisk University. I got my master's and my PhD at Vanderbilt University. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you. Dion, can you hear us now? I think we may have lost audio for a moment.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having connection. I don't know what's going on. All right, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Dion Hernandez Lugo, and I have a bachelor's degree in industrial chemistry and a PhD in physical chemistry, both of those from the University of Puerto Rico. As you can see from my flag, born and raised in Puerto Rico, all my K to 12, my undergrad and my grad education were all from the public school in the island. I joined NASA back in 2010 as a Harriet Jenkins Fellow. That allowed me to go to NASA and work on my PhD work as I was doing and finishing my schools. And then that allowed me to get a NASA job first as a co-op and then as a full-time employee. Currently, I'm a contracts manager with the Power and Propulsion Element. So basically, we are the backbone of Gateway, which is a small space station that's going to take astronauts around the moon. And I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you. And thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to stop and say how amazing it is to have this group of like powerful and inspirational Latina women that are making such a big difference in the respective organizations and companies. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions. We did get some questions ahead of time, and we also were able to just filter some of the questions to be able to make this as interactive as possible. So my first question is to Kaylee. And the question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in space? Did your upbringing influence your decision at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually I grew up, both my parents were engineers, and so I grew up in a house that was kind of covered, but our whole basement was covered in schematics of aircraft carriers and fighter jets and all these other really cool space things. And I remember my mom telling me all the time that the sky is not the limit, and that I could be whatever I wanted to be. That she was an engineer, and so I could be that too if that's what I wanted. And she worked on boats, and boats are really cool. But I thought space was cooler, and I think the growing up with the mindset of like reach for the stars and end up going further is what really drove me to pursue engineering. And it wasn't until I got into high school and started learning more about robotics and all the different types of engineering that there are that I learned about the Mars rovers. Ended up falling in love with space, like went to pursue my degree in it and just haven't really looked back since. Just continued to fall more and more in love with space exploration and space travel and how the technology that I build here on Earth helps benefit Earth even when it's in space.
Yeah, I mean it's mind-boggling to be able to know that some of the work that you're doing today is not only impacting today, but just also future generations. And so, yeah, and it's great to hear just the background and how your parents inspired you to also pursue the type of career that you have now. Um, Dion, can you talk to us a little bit about what surprised you about your job? Like, what's been the most surprising thing about what you're doing today?
I'm sorry, I lost the last part of the question. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, what surprised you the most about your job, or what's been the most surprising thing so far?
Um, so I think for me, what excites me the most about my job is learning how my PhD is basically on nanotechnology for rechargeable batteries. And when I got into NASA, it was one of the areas that NASA had decided to stop working on. So imagine starting school, finishing school and getting into the job and finding out that the projects that you were hired to work on were canceled, right? So it was very shocking for me at that time. And what I did was I spoke to a couple of people and I started basically looking into what opportunities they had that had battery technology. And that's where the X-57 Maxwell Electrified Aircraft project kind of came in. And I was asked to lead the development of that battery after very a phase that they had. So that kind of showed me, right, that a set of skill sets going into you have to look for ways to making sure that your skill sets can fit into the bigger picture, right? And that's what allowed me to kind of get into the battery technology X-57, and from there then continue into project management and contract management, which is what I'm doing now. And then something not so much that surprised me about my job, but surprised me about myself is the ability to be able to talk to all different levels. I think something that I've learned is that and it's something that I would like to share, is that, in order for you to, get to communicate with all different levels, you have to make sure that you can make it as simple as possible. So not only talking to elementary students, but even talking all the way up to the senior levels, making sure that your message is, very short and straight. It's something also that I've learned in the time that I've been here.
Yeah, thank you. Effective communication, I think, is a sometimes very underrated skill set that I think many of us don't get an opportunity to finesse. And yeah, to your point, Dion, it's something that really does, I think, also make a big difference. And the more we become comfortable in talking in front of people or talking to different type of people, I think that makes a big difference. And I think related to that, and this is a question for you, Rosalind, is like overcoming some of our own sometimes personal inhibitions or beliefs that we don't belong. Because this is a very popular question, I think, that many of us often get asked, and that is, have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome, and what did you do to help overcome it?
Yeah, so absolutely, I've had imposter syndrome. So I think my first experience with imposter syndrome was probably when I went to college. So I'm a first gen Latina. My parents they immigrated here from El Salvador. So all I knew was like my family, right? My immediate family. I had never been around such as like a diverse space as when I first stepped foot on like the UCLA campus. It's a big campus. There's very like so many smart people there. You often wonder like did I what did I do to like be among these people? I don't have, you know, I've met people who knew they wanted to be engineers since they were like 5 years old, and I learned what an engineer was in like 11th grade of high school. So that it really can be daunting. But I will say that like I think this is a very common experience. And it's because we just don't see a ton of representation of people who look like us in these fields. And so I think, programs like this, efforts, I think that's why you'll find that, like a lot of Latinos and Latinas in STEM will come back and do a lot of outreach because they recognize that feeling and they want to help sort of mitigate that issue. As far as sort of being able to overcome it, I think a break point for me is when I got my first job and I started to work on actual tech. And there's a when you kind of realize like if I was here by just pure luck, that's a lot of things that had to fall into place at the right time. It's
Yeah.
definitely not luck. So you're there. I think it's just really important to kind of take a moment sometimes to ground yourself and remind yourself, like, I did work hard to get here. Like, there was a lot of sleepless nights. There was a lot of, effort that I put forth, that you might sort of lose perspective of if you're just always thinking about how you are different and you don't kind of see yourself represented. So that's kind of my advice is try to keep yourself grounded and remind yourself of all the things you have achieved. And, those are things that are proof that you do deserve to be where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think imposter syndrome is something that all of us face at one point in our career, especially as we're continuing to grow and develop, right? And as we're learning more and as we're growing, there's going to be instances where we may stop and ask ourselves, do I really belong? Is this is this what I should be doing? And there might be people that will very blatantly say you don't belong. And I think that is really the point where our resilience and us really digging deep and saying, no, but I do, because my voice matters and I bring value and I bring a perspective that not everybody else can. And I'm valuable, and I can help and I can make a difference and I've made a difference. And I think some of those affirmations become very important. And along those lines, Laura, I'd like to ask you, what challenges have you faced as a Latina in STEM, and how has your cultural background influenced your journey at NASA?
Some of the challenges has been public speaking. So I've always been kind of scared of public speaking. So what I did was join Toastmasters International, which is a global organization that helps people from all walks of life practice their public speaking. And with that environment and friendship and mentorship, it has really helped me grow as a speaker, as just a casual, even one-on-one conversation. And so my cultural background as a Latina that has helped me at NASA has been the connection, the connections that I've had, as well as resilience, pride in who I am. In my second semester of my master's, my mentors, Dr. Kayvon Stassen and Dr. Rudy Montes, suggested, hey, there's a fellowship for NASA, you should apply. And that imposter syndrome kicked in. I'm like, no, I'm not smart enough. I don't know anything. And they were like, no, this is an opportunity for you to grow as a scientist. So apply. I applied and I did get it. I was, I think, 1 in 10. And it's the same fellowship that Dr. Dion Hernandez Lugo received as well. And I think that programs like this really help us students just grow, and they're important for the community.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Laura, Dr. Laura Vega. I also need to remind myself. Yeah, I believe facing adversity, overcoming that, and also finding areas where we know that we need to further develop our skills. Right. I think that's also a big and important awareness factor. For me personally, one thing I'll just quickly share is that I'm actually a very natural introvert. But I'm a decent public speaker. But speaking publicly, like, actually takes a lot out of me. So I have to do a lot of personal recharging afterwards. And it's something that I've just had to become very aware. Like, I enjoy talking to people, I enjoy helping, I enjoy doing a lot of outreach work. But I've also learned to realize some of my own personal limitations of just being aware that it can be something that just can physically also be very exhausting to me. And I think that's just part of learning more about yourself and being aware of what we can each do to further understand ourselves better and continue to grow. And also along those lines, we have a question, Kaylee, that actually a college student sent us over, and I'd like to have you answer it. And the question is, I'm a college student studying STEM, and I have a learning disability. I've been told to switch my major, but I really have a passion for STEM. What advice would you give me?
Ooh, That's such a good one. So, for those of you, I guess, who don't know me all that well, I also have a learning disability. I have ADHD and I'm on the spectrum. So, I usually call it AUDHD, so AUDHD. So it's autism and ADHD together. And I didn't know that I had this until I was already in college, and I promise you, I got all those same comments. I use this like analogy and this quote that like I found on Twitter one day, I think a lot for things like this. And it was that the Mars rovers are named after curiosity, perseverance, ingenuity, spirit, because those are the things that make up what it takes to be in STEM, and specifically like beyond that space. They don't call them A plus and A minus because test grades and how well you do in school is not the determining factor. If you're passionate about what you're doing, and if you're passionate about STEM especially, I promise you, you're on the right track, because STEM and innovation and everything that kind of goes into the ability to create the next generation of things that are going into space and beyond, it's built on passion, especially in the space industry. I mean, I think all of our panelists could probably agree that like you walk into an office and there's not a single person there that is not also equally passionate about space, that probably was watching the Starship launch yesterday and was waiting for whatever launch is coming up next. And we all just kind of celebrate each other and the work that we're doing in the industry, because everything that we do is founded on passion. And so I know it's really hard, and I know it's a lot easier said than done to not listen to the people who are telling you that you don't belong in STEM. And we've talked about imposter syndrome, and you feel way more like an imposter when people are actually telling you to your face that you don't belong in STEM. But I'm here to tell you to your face that you do, that anyone who is excited and just willing to put in the time and the work to make cool things has a place in the industry for sure. So don't give up.
Yeah, and to that, I'd like to add, I experienced something similar when I was in college. I don't think I mentioned, but I graduated from MIT. And I was very fortunate to have, which I didn't realize, like a lot of this stuff as a first gen student as well, I didn't really quite grasp until later. My advisor was an ex MIT president, and I just didn't even really understand what that actually meant until I was having a conversation with him and letting him know how much I was struggling and how difficult it was, and how in particular in one class I was having a hard time. He picked up the phone and called the professor, and the professor was very willing to help me, but it was that connection, right, to have that, to have my advisor reach out, and in moments of challenge or adversity, I think reaching out also to people that can help us, or ways that we can work through those challenges, become very critical and important. Because believe me, even now, I can probably say this on behalf of the panelists, there's moments that we are probably told we can't do something or something can't happen, and we have to find the courage and the determination to say, I agree to disagree, and I will figure out a way to make it possible. So I think that's something that we also, it needs to be a part of just persevering, and kind of pushing against the tide. And with that, I'd like to ask Dr. Dion Hernandez Lugo, what's one thing you wish to see more of in your line of work?
So I think, so for me, I think, right, it's more women and of course more Latinos. I think diversity overall, whether it's in education, type of careers, or backgrounds, for me is extremely important. And it's not so much about the color of our skin. It's more about how solving problems when people come from different backgrounds, help a team overall. I think that we all come up with different situations, and the way that we resolve issues sometimes comes from a little bit of the struggles and the ideas, right, that we had growing up in all of our different countries. So I value that significantly. For example, I was in this development program called Rocket University, and in there we had people from all different backgrounds. And one of the team members was very strong-minded, like he wanted things done his way, and it was very hard to get through to him. However, right, being able both be from the Caribbean and be able to speak Spanish and speak his language with his tone and with the same type of aggressiveness, I was able to kind of get through to him, and we ended up a very, very good and very successful flight project. And it he listened to me, and a lot of that had to do because I, resemble some of his family members, right? So at the end of the project, he's like, "You look like my oldest cousin, and I respect her so much, and I, saw that in you." And that helps. So having someone, in your team that definitely, resembles and you can relate to, I think is extremely important. And I've seen it in many, many projects here at NASA, how having people from similar backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, but also similar backgrounds, helps immensely. So I think for me, what I want to see in my line of work is, of course, more women in STEM. That's why we're here. Little girls or big girls as possible, right? To make sure and join us in this journey, here at NASA or in any other company that are doing STEM work.
Great, thank you. Yeah, yeah. No, I think again, having worked in the industry in my experience for close to 20 years, which is kind of hard for me to like wrap my brain around that. I think I agree. I will say that I have seen more women in the field. I have been part of projects where the leaders have been women. And it is starting, I think, to change. We definitely need more women in STEM fields, but I am starting to see more of that shift happen than I did definitely when I was a student, for sure. Um, Rosalind, I'd like to ask you to kind of add to Dion's messages. How has your cultural background shaped the way you approach problem solving or collaboration in STEM, and how can classrooms highlight these strengths?
Yeah. So, like I said, my parents are from El Salvador. So, I think something that has always kind of stuck with me is sort of just our grit. So, like, we have such a tenacity because we have been brought up in families that just work hard all the time. And so they kind of just like instill in you this like échale ganas, ponte las pilas, all of
Mhm.
those sayings. So that's impacted me at work because whenever I feel, a work problem or having an issue, like not even a technical issue, maybe it's, an issue with a particular person on a project, that all of those enseñanzas kind of come to mind, because they kind of sort of remind me of like, hey, you can do this. You can. Here's like try approaching it from a different perspective. Like try how would you try to explain this if you were explaining it to a family member. So I think it has impacted me a lot in the aspect of how I approach collaboration and communication. And so I think classrooms can try to highlight this because I think when people think of scientists and engineers, no one really thinks about their ability to communicate as being a strength, but that's very necessary for my job. I need to be able to tell you, hey, XYZ is not going to work and
Mhm.
we need to do something about it now. And if I can't get that across to people who have those decisions or have the ability to make those decisions and flow them up to, higher ups, then, my projects will be at risk. So I think classrooms definitely should work on writing skills, communication skills, being able to effectively communicate your wants and needs, and how to carry that across in a pretty concise way. I think efficiency is the mark of a good engineer, but also I think it's clarity. So you have to be pretty concise, and but also pretty clear of like, hey, we really need to do X, Y, and Z. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? I think communication and communicating is an underrated skill that I think we kind of continue to learn how to finesse as we continue to grow in our careers. And it's something that and financial literacy, but that's a topic for another day. So, I think, Laura, I'd like to ask you. Uh, Kind of adding to what feedback we would give to younger generations is, did you ever doubt choosing your field throughout school? And what is a typical day like for you?
There was a so since I was a little girl, I knew I loved astronomy, and it was trips back to visit family in Mexico. Every summer, my dad, we would all, as a family, pack up our things and go visit family in the summer. And to avoid the sun, we drove at night. And so just on the road, looking at the stars with the mountains and just no light pollution, just really inspired me. And so I think uh, that was just an impression that I held throughout my childhood, teenage years, and but there was a point or a moment where I thought, like, well, what if I do something else? And that was music. My background, my family is mariachi, and so I did take. I was a trumpet player from middle school up to college, and there was a time where I thought, well, I'm going to do my music, but at the end of the day, no, my heart was still in the science and astronomy. And a typical day in my work life varies. It's sometimes it's reading the literature, keeping up to date of what new science is going on, as well as the news, things like that. Also, coding. I do scripts to analyze data from space telescopes. So I use NASA telescopes like TESS that looks at a lot of different stars, and it's a planet hunter trying to look for planets around orbiting other stars, um, as well as other telescopes in space. But it's either reading, coding, writing as well, proposal writing. We need to get funded, so we need to propose to get funds from either NASA, NSF, telescope time as well. So that's a typical life in the life of Dr. Vega.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I just want to stop and pause and say like how cool it is that you get to work with like NASA telescopes and like look at the stars and look at orbiting planets and like gather information and run scripts. I mean, that's just really awesome. I think I'd like to come and just hang out with you sometime to check that out. Um, I do want to, Kaylee, since I know that you are also very passionate about helping young girls um, be more exposed to STEM careers, I'd like to ask you if you could redesign one part of STEM education experience to better support Latinx students, what would it be and why?
Just one thing.
Or okay, maybe top two. Top two. We'll limit it at top two.
Okay. Yeah. So I run a nonprofit called Reinvented, and we work very heavily in hands-on education, specifically when it comes to STEM. And I think there have kind of been two themes that we've seen we work with younger students, but I think that these two things are things that still roll over well into like college and beyond. And so the first one is creativity. There seems to be this weird misconception that in STEM, creativity doesn't really have its place, that you cannot, like, there is no A in STEM, which I know there's a whole controversy about, but to me, like, there is no STEM without the art and the creativity that goes in it. And there's like no mutual exclusivity, right? Like these things go hand in hand, and so students end up going through this curriculum learning from a textbook or from lesson plans that are so rigid that I think it's really hard, especially for girls and minorities, to get engaged with all of it. And so they end up like kind of falling out of the program because one, they don't feel like they belong, and two, it's not as interesting as like they originally thought it was going to be when they, took their nighttime drives and saw like a completely unfiltered night sky, right? And so I think adding ways to like build that creativity and that mindset of innovation can't exist without creativity, and diverse minds and all of that really needs to be built back into the curriculum. And number two is very specifically for women, but there are many statistics that show that women, especially minority women in STEM, who, and Rosalind, like you said, we grew up with this mindset of like we work hard, we get things done, and I mean I'm sure many of you were like me, but my mom also instilled this whole we make an impact, we leave the world better than we found it, and maybe that was a Girl Scout thing too, but and so that's also something that like girls do better and they are more engaged when they're working on projects that are related to impact. And so, like one quick example, I was hosting a robotics webinar or seminar at a local library a couple of years back, and I was walking them through the steps on how to like build the robot, how to code the robot, and they were like, "This is cool. Like, I enjoy this. This is all right." And then, like, I was like, "Okay, I think we can do a little bit better than this." And so the next day, I presented them a challenge on how to use the light sensor, and it was let's help get the sea turtles away from the light pollution and to the ocean. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, I see the real world applicability of this. I see the impact and I want to be a part of that impact. And so I think it's really this rigidity of the textbooks that don't let so many of us who were born into this like creativity, work hard, be imaginative, and aim bigger, don't feel like they have space to grow within the STEM industry. And so those are my two things. I think is we need more creativity and we need more impact so that girls feel like they're making the difference that they actually are when they learn these concepts in school.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think making things relatable to students where they are and at a place where they can understand and learn makes a big difference. I have a 6-year-old son, and I find myself a lot of the times trying to convince him to do certain things. And I've realized that a lot of that and getting him to do it stems around explaining like why it matters and why it's important. And I think this is actually very similar in that way as well. That we need to make things more applicable and more relatable. I think to younger kids, and to young girls, right? Like dismantle this whole thing that sometimes we grow up learning or internalizing that we're not good at math, or that we can't do certain things, or that it's typically a boy thing to do. And I think that will go absolutely a long way. Dion, I'd like to pivot a little bit now to young professionals for a little bit, and I'd like to ask you, what obstacles did you encounter in your early career, um, and um, and what helped you regain motivation?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I don't see them as obstacles now because I'm glad that they happened, but uh so many, right? I went into growing up, I had a lot of interest in science, right? And I'm the only science major in my family, and I'm sure a lot of people here can relate to that. So my parents didn't know exactly how to help me or how to help me with applications and those kinds of things. So everyone told me like, "Oh, you should go to med school. You're very interested in this." I was one of those carrying like a microscope, everywhere I went. And everyone, you should go into med school. So that was went into pre-med, and I went into med school the first year. And I remember when I was doing pre-med that I started doing microbiology and the biology classes. I told my aunt, I was like, this is not for me. I can't do this. And mind you, I came from an accounting background. So I studied accounting in high school, right? So I I was like, okay, maybe I need to just go back to accounting or maybe be an admin or something. Sure that you can your degree. So I went into med school the first year I was there. I went to the morgue. That was not for me. I was like, I am not touching dead bodies, right? So it's not going to happen. So now I'm like, what am I going to do? So I chose to go into chemistry because I really like math.
Mhm.
And my engineering school in Puerto Rico is 3 hours from my house. So I was like, I'm not gonna go. But I did. I studied. I did my chemistry, industrial chemistry, because it was closer to my house. And then when I finished my chemistry degree, I married. I had my children. And the pharmaceutical what I was working at laid a bunch of us off. So there you go, another pivot. What do I do now? And at that time, my professor, my organic chemistry professor, told me, she's like, you should go to grad school. And I was like, grad school? I don't know. I haven't thought about any of that. I have a family and I have kids and I can't, do that. Well, I was, the school, what they did was and this is what actually made my decision to go into grad school, was the fact that the school was going to pay for my kids education, right? So I was like, oh, I could do that. All right, I'm going to go do this. And that's how I ended up going to grad school. I mean, it's basically, other people saw things in me. My aunt saw that, going into accountant or being an admin is not something that I would be, happy in. And then from there, then having this professor pushing me, right? And she even did my application, just as how much she pushed me. So then I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to go do. And then when I was doing my grad school, then I, was involved in NASA related research to the university. They have different programs, and that led me into, the Harry and Jenkins Fellowship. So yes, I mean, I found multiple. I mean, I did my PhD. My kids were 1 and 2 year olds. So some people may say like that's not a time to go into grad school, but I did. And now I'm here and working for NASA, which was my dream job. Were multiple, obstacles in terms of what I wanted. Am I good at, can I be successful in it? Have my family and go to school. How do I move my family over from Puerto Rico over here to the U.S. With no English? My children had no English background coming here either, right? So that was another thing. But we did it. We did it together, and now they're college students doing amazing, and so I'm happy, right? I'm happy about all those things, and very importantly, having those people around you that support you and push you and see things in you that you may not see, and listening to them and moving forward to this goal that I had, with very little information on how to get there, but people around me really helped me see the light, and I'm very happy for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, a lot of what you're saying or what you shared like completely resonates. For me personally, like I originally wanted to be an architect because I'd never met an engineer. I didn't know what engineering was, very much like Rosalind. I didn't learn about it until a summer program between my junior and senior year in high school. And the first time I met an actual engineer or that I interfaced was when I was at MIT. So I mean, there's a lot I think of being fortunate, but also being prepared, right? Like some of these opportunities will come your way, but you need to be ready and prepared to take advantage of them. As people continue to see your potential and they continue to push you and encourage you and help you and guide you, and so I think that that becomes really important as part of of breaking barriers, and finding careers or passions in areas that you had no idea it would be something you would follow. I actually never expected to be in aerospace. Maybe I should share a little bit about that. My concentration was in analog in college. I have a degree in electrical engineering. And so I had always imagined working for a chip company. I'd never pictured working in aerospace, but I really enjoyed electromagnetic wave theory classes, which is basically the study of learning how waves travel and how how we can hear sounds or see light, and just understanding like the physics and math behind it was what was really interesting to me. And that just kind of led to an open door in aerospace. And I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. So sometimes we have to be able and willing to pivot a little bit to really see the potential in different in different fields that we may not have considered um, growing up. And so along those lines, Rosalind, I'd like to ask you, um, somebody actually asked, I want to work in the space industry someday. How do I start?
That's a good question. I kind of want to answer this from sort of two different viewpoints. So the first one, from like a STEM perspective, this assumes that you're interested in working as an engineer or a scientist or a mathematician. And so depending where you are, either if you're still in school, so I would say don't give up on math. Math is fundamental to being an engineer. That being said, I have not done actual calculus at my job in like 4 or 5 years. That doesn't mean I don't understand the concepts behind it. So I do use it, but I don't do sit there and actually crunch out these numbers. Um, the way you use it is by knowing the concepts, understanding the reasoning behind the and basically work on your math skills. Work on your math skills. Take science focused classes. And then once you kind of have that foundation, you can start then looking for opportunities through internships or fellowships, or things like that. So you would be surprised that there's tons of programs out there available for people who are interested. So if you're still in school, if you're in college, definitely apply to those internships. You might be thinking, like, maybe you read a job description, you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Uh, that's fine. I feel like this is a trade secret in the industry. We know interns don't know anything. That's perfectly fine. We're going to teach you what you need to know. Even goes for early career people as well. Like if this is your entry level job, most companies understand that you won't actually be useful for like the first couple months because they're there to train you. So don't let that hold you back. And then the other part that I wanted to answer this question is from a non-STEM perspective. I feel like people forget that to get something into space, it actually takes way more than just scientists and engineers. Someone's got to do the budget. Someone's got to do the scheduling. Someone's got to do the marketing. So if you are in a place where you're like, well, I tried the math thing, it truly isn't for me, Rosalind. Please don't make me do math. Perfectly understandable. We need artists, we need communicators. There are plenty. You'll find people with jobs who their whole job is to document um, sort of what the industry is doing, report on that. So journalism. There are other positions that you can find that still support launches and sending things into space. So it doesn't have to be a STEM focused career. It can be. So like I thank the Lord every day for like my planner, and her job is basically making sure I get parts on time. If you are interested in supporting getting into space that way, that's a good way to do it. Not everybody has to be an engineer. There is definitely a place for you, and you can find sort of those postings on there. There's a lot of exciting things that a lot of startups are working on. So just, hop on Google, start typing random ideas, literally just pop in startups. Startups are always looking for people who will take on and wear multiple hats. So there are opportunities out there. Space isn't just for people who are STEM focused. So definitely, if you're interested, just try to do your own research. Go for those opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Rosalind. Yeah, my current job now is as a senior program manager, and basically I'm responsible for making sure that we stay on budget and then we get things done on time. And so I don't I don't get to work on a lot of the design engineering anymore. But I definitely get to work with an extended group of people that are doing a lot of that exciting front end work. Before our last round of questions, because it's been 50 minutes already. I know we can stand here and like talk for another hour or two answering questions, and this has been a great conversation. We unfortunately need to start thinking about wrapping up, but before that last round, I'd like to ask Laura. This is also another question I was provided. Is mentorship important, and what role has mentorship played in your career?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Mentorship is very important and at all levels. And for example, um, I worked with the PhD advisor, and he is wonderful. But I also have a network of mentors who could guide me in different directions, whether it's professional development, um, how to do my taxes. Like I would go to a family member for that. That's a mentor. So mentorship at every level, even peer mentoring. So uh, I got my PhD, my master's and PhD through the Fisk Vanderbilt Master's to PhD Bridge program, which helped a lot in my development as a scientist. And one of the core things about the Bridge program is mentorship. And so we go in as a cohort of 10 to 12 students. And at that level, we start doing, I guess, interacting and also learning what peer mentoring is. We come from different branches of science in the beginning, either astronomy, physics, chemistry, biology, but we're there for each other. And we all come from different walks of life. And someone might have the answer to something that I had a question about, or I might have the answer to something else. And so having that network of mentorship, your PhD advisor or your advisor is not going to have all the answers. They might, but try to find mentorship in everybody. Everybody has something that they can share that you can learn from, and I think that's an awesome way of viewing community. And back to the question, yes, mentorship is very important, and it has played a huge role in my career. And I definitely am grateful for all the mentors that I've had. I still have them, and I have mentored colleagues as well, students that come through the NASA internship programs, helping my friends, my colleagues mentor their interns and things like that. But yeah, I think very important.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and to this, I just like to add that I don't believe I've developed this, but I've thought of this in a way of a way for me personally is I call it a board of directors, like my own personal board of directors, where I have a group of 5 to 6 people. Some of them are in the industry, some of them have been in the same companies that I've worked at, and some of them are just external, completely different outside of my field, who I reach out to, who I have questions, who I have conversations, or I look to advise, who I respect. And they have been their support and their encouragement in moments of challenge, or even when things are going really well, right, have been instrumental just in my development. So I encourage everyone to have that as a sounding board, because I think it can be very invaluable. So we're right at the end, and so we're going to make this kind of quickly because we have some exciting news to share at the end. Um, and so it's going to be the panelists, if we can just answer the questions very quickly, that'd be great. So Kaylee, so for you, what advice would you give parents who would like to encourage their daughters or children to pursue STEM careers?
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. I think my number one thing that I would maybe tell parents is to be the support system for your kid. I can promise you that they're going to have a bad day. I can promise you that they're always going to need their mom or their dad. I know countless times that I have, and every single time my mom picked up the phone and we had a virtual cup of tea and we talked it out, and she reminded me how much I love space and how much I love STEM and that I still belong. And I think one of the things that I would highly recommend, because I do this for myself now, and I think that for like young daughters and girls, parents can help with this. Create like keep a list of all of the amazing things that your kids are doing, because when they call you and crying and they're sad and they're doubting themselves, you're going to want that list and remind them about every single reason why they're amazing, because you know they're amazing, but we don't always know how amazing we are in your eyes, and in the world's eyes. And so I do this for myself, and for those of you who, like, you should all do this for yourself, but parents especially, because I promise you're going to get the call. Keep a list of like all the things that your kids done that are amazing, and just be there to remind them of all those things.
Great. Thank you so much. Dion, same question. What advice would you give parents to encourage their kids?
Yeah, so I think that studying. Hold on, sorry, there's some background music. So I would say that studying science is really hard, and kids are going to come to you and they're going to be like, "I don't want to do this. I want to give up." La la la. Just hear them out, right? Hear them out and be like, just try for a little bit. Continue trying it, and it will work out. I think the other thing that I want to connect this question to the question that you were talking about, mentoring. When we talk about mentoring also, and this is also for the parents, we think about mentoring in the sense of people within your network or people in your school. Something that I've learned in this career is that you have to build your network, but also outside of work, right? So, for example, there's Hispanic, organizations all over, right? The U.S. and in your city, I'm sure you guys have it. So make sure that you can always try to continue to have a connection with that community, because you never know. You never know who's picking up coffee at Starbucks and wants to talk about my son is studying this and that, and they would like to have an internship, right? You just never know when these conversations are going to come up. So I think it's also important to continue to, you know, build those relationships outside of work, continue having connection with your Hispanic community here in the U.S., which is different from in Puerto Rico, right? And continue to do that. And I think that will definitely help. And be your kids, biggest cheerleader, right? Whether they do good or they do bad, they finish the semester, just celebrate them, right? Whatever grades they may have, just celebrate them, right? And be their cheerleaders. And I think that's very important, to have someone that you can definitely come to in a safe environment and talk about how you're feeling. And I think that's what I try to do, at least with my kids. They decided not to go into science, but they still have their struggles. So I would say to parents, just be your children's biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Rosalind, uh, the question is, what advice would you give kids in elementary school who are curious about STEM?
So, kids in elementary school who are curious about STEM, don't be afraid of math. Math is actually really fun. So don't give up on math. I feel like, especially the way math is taught, you don't really see what the point of it is. So I feel like a good way to get engaged with it is do projects. If you can kind of see the science and the math or like the engineering you're doing and it have a result, that feels good, right? And so that's kind of what I want to at least encourage parents. If you have a young kid at home, try to research some STEM kits. Maybe there's like some Lego robots. I feel like today all of these kits are more accessible than they've ever been before. If you can kind of just get those small projects and use that as a bonding opportunity with your child as well, you actually might be surprised that you might learn something yourself doing those projects with them. So definitely try to find STEM related activities that don't really just focus on learning equations or just kind of like the textbook way science and math have always been taught.
Yeah, let's make STEM more relatable to younger kids, right? I think that's a big key takeaway. Laura?
I 100% agree. Also, as well, I'm a kid that grew up with Bill and I the Science Guy, PBS, Zoom. They're always making experiments at home and things like that. Um, Magic School Bus. So just
Magic was.
I love that show. Um, I think just exposure to fun and science at the same time. I think that helps, have that connection with STEM.
Yeah. I think libraries can be really underrated, like community libraries. Like I loved going to the library as a kid, and going to the library is a treat for my son. So I'd like to encourage that, and I think kids just in general are super curious about just learning and taking the opportunity to explain things. Why is the sky blue? And like answering questions like in a way that they understand, but also how science is behind a lot of it. So we are at time. I know the hour flew by, right? But I think we were able to hit a lot of important topics, ranging from imposter syndrome to overcoming challenges, to what have we worked on that's been really exciting, and how resiliency in the way that we grew up really has really just enabled us to really um, find ourselves in our careers and continue to push the envelope and trailblaze along the way and be examples for each other, but also for younger generations. So thank you so much to all of you for being here today, for having this conversation, and for everybody that joined us. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'm sure if you go online and search any of the panelists here, many of them would be more than happy to connect or answer questions. And we're always very supportive of these type of activities and outreach. And so thank you everyone so much. I believe there's a raffle that we're concluding with. So I will send this back to Annabelle.